All right, it's news debate. I am Lee. It's not the normal show. It's not the normal setup. Hopefully, it sounded okay. We got Shannon joining us over on Twitter Spaces. I would give you applause, Shannon, but I do not have the applause button handy. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, Lee. I thought you disappeared and were never coming back. No,
I'm like a I'm like a judge that pisses off the Trump administration. I just disappear, never come back.
that said you could have been taken away and sent to Venezuela or something.
Oh, yeah, it was in that El Salvadorian prison, is that where it is? Where's that prison they're sending everybody to?
Is it Venezuela or El Salvador? I don't.
It's not
It's
Venezuela, we
Venezuela.
don't have a good enough relationship to have one there. I think they're sending Venezuelans there, but I think it's somewhere else. Wherever it is, that's where I must have been. No, yes, I've been traveling. I, didn't do the show as quickly, again, as I thought I would. I thought I'd give it a month. Instead, I think it was about 6 weeks, so it's been a long time. How have you been? How's your health, Shannon?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I'm surviving. But you're right. It's Venezuelans are in an El Salvadorian prison. Our Venezuelan immigrants are in an El Salvador prison. So confusing. But yeah, I'm doing okay health wise. Just my body's not taking this bipolar weather well. Like 2 days ago was 80 degrees. Our high today is 43 degrees. And we have a nor'easter coming in, so we're going to get like 2 inches of rain an hour for 6 hours.
So there's a storm that's about to hit Connecticut, is what you're telling me.
Yes, and I don't ever remember Memorial Day weekend being 43 degrees. You know, I mean, it could be chilly like 60 degrees, but not at this time of the year. It's usually not 43 degrees.
Shannon, I know you've lived like your entire life, I think, in Connecticut. You've spoken about it as if that would be the case, whether or not you're on the land or you're on an island off the coast of Connecticut, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think it's about time to move somewhere else. I really do. Hey, there's some applause. The audience agrees. Move somewhere else, Shannon. Somewhere warm.
Oh hell no! I like the cold. I just can't deal with the extreme changes in temperatures. So like 2 days ago it's 80, and today it's 43. My body can't adjust that quickly.
And aside from the weather bringing you down, no new heart attacks, no new falls, no new COVID diagnoses. I mean, you've the last year and a half,
Oh
you've been through it all.
no, not yet. Are you trying to curse me?
You know, it might be. Check this out, Shannon. I was out of your life for like 6 weeks and none of those things happened. Maybe that's the factor. Push Lee out of your life. And only I guess I brought the bad weather back when oof, this is the real Sophie's
This is
choice.
awkward. Is that what you're gonna say?
This is getting awkward, yeah. It's bringing in the new, bringing in the bad, taking away the old, taking away the bad. A little bit of A, a little bit of B. Okay, Shannon, it's been a long time. Great to have you, especially since I started the show late. I'm not in my full setup. I'm not live on stereo right now. I couldn't get the simulcast working, but I'll figure that out eventually. I have a bunch of new equipment because I'm still not at my house. I'm on the road. Um, probably a lot of different things, but currently today, what's your hot take? What's a piece of news you have?
Woo! We have a new 400 million dollar plane from Qatar. That's gonna be the new Air Force One. They say.
What was Trump gonna do, Shannon? Not accept the gift? Was he gonna turn it down
The
and we were gonna
bribe.
pay for our own $400 million plane? You want your taxes to pay for that?
Yes, absolutely, because we already have two on order. One's supposed to be delivered next year for Air Force One, and then Air Force Two in 2029. And that's what he did in the last his last term. He ordered two new jets for Air Force One. So yes, absolutely, he's
And
supposed to turn that down.
even if it was like, well, it's a cost saving thing, Apparently, once he's done with it, it's going to go in the Trump presidential library or something like that. I heard that once he was no longer president, which does that mean he's admitting that this will be his last term? Because the plan I've read is that after this term, it would be somewhere that people could check out, some sort of library. I think perhaps the Trump presidential library. I guess they didn't build one after his first term. Do they wait a little bit of time if you lose your, like George Bush Sr., when he only got one term, Clinton beat him,
Right.
right? Did they build his library immediately, or like maybe he'll win a second term later, whatever it is? I think it's going to Trump's presidential library. So, yeah, it's not even a cost saving measure because you could probably use that plane for a decade or longer.
Well, no, they can't use it at all. It has to be retrofitted or refitted because it's not in condition to
No,
be
they
Air
could
Force
use it.
One. It
I mean,
doesn't
yeah,
have the
they have to go through. I read that they have to like sweep it because it's a foreign. Whatever Trump
no, they
says,
have
the
to
the people
pull
in
it all
power,
apart.
they're not just going to accept this gift and then make it Air Force One. So they have to go through and sweep it and make some changes. But whatever the case, it's only going to be a short term investment. I do think whatever they pay to make it usable as Air Force One is cheaper than buying another plane. You brought up the fact, well,
We've
Lee, we
already
already
bought
have some
another
planes
plane.
in the queue. Okay, so that's one issue. But the other issue I'm trying to get to here, this makes sense, right, Shannon, is that even if we were to accept, well, it's a gift, we're not going to turn it down, and there's some cost to get it Air Force One worthy and do all that stuff. It's only going to be a plane for Trump. Once he's done in the White House, it's going to go to a library. So it's costs, inefficiency if you already have planes in the queue, and an awkward gift from Qatar.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's not even safety worthy for the president. It can't refuel in the air like Air Force One can. It can't do the distances. It doesn't have the defense mechanisms on it or the
Shannon, I really
weapons.
think you're missing the point here. Did you see how nice it is and how it has all of these cool things that only Trump can enjoy? That's the real important. That's the meat on the bone here, not this refueling nonsense. I mean, you've seen the photos. It's a pretty nice airplane, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the point of it for Air Force One. Forget all that protection crap. It's pretty inside.
Well, I mean, Trump has had two people go after him with guns. One successfully shot him. The other one waited for like 12 hours outside Mar-a-Lago golf course and I guess didn't even get a shot off. I don't think these nutsos are going to be flying jets at Trump anytime soon. How safe does Air Force One really have to be? When you're in the air, who's going to take down Air Force One?
I mean, if you're flying to other countries, a shoulder rocket could take it out.
That is technically true. Okay, you bust my balls here. But what's the? I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. It's a nice airplane. It's a gift from our good friends over in Qatar. Great friends, the best friends, some would say. Really good friends. And you just want him to say no to his really good friends and turn down this $400 million aircraft.
Yes.
That is correctly. You have given a summation
Why did
of
you put
my
it on
points.
eBay or something? Put it on eBay, sell it, and then donate the money somewhere and to where we need it. With like his big beautiful tax bill, it's gonna cut out so many people from Medicare and Medicaid and food stamps.
That's what he should do is if he's just going to enjoy, he doesn't want a Democrat or like Marco Rubio or whoever else could be Republican president after Trump. He doesn't want them getting their dirty hands on his Qatar $400 million gift plane. So he should just use it, all of the problems associated with it that we just mentioned, and then sell it. That would be a good moneymaker. And then take the money and spend that on the Trump library, the presidential library?
To buy more coloring books?
Former President Trump, we require a few more things for your presidential library. Oh, it's so popular. Everybody wants to. We need more coloring books. They're very popular at the library. The coloring books for children. A lot of the adults who go to the library are very excited to use the coloring books. Okay, that's a pretty good one, Shannon. Let me see if I can pull up some news on that. I'm in a very different
So,
sort of setup than normal, so I'm going to be a little slow on my end. Yeah, Shannon, continue.
so I'll tell you a story, Lee. I'm still going into my MAGA rooms because I have hope that they will see the crap that he's doing.
Oh, how much a waste of time that is. If you're just going there to screw with them, I don't know if that's a good idea, but I can at least applaud, and now that I have the sound, I can applaud the troll good times that you must be having. Go all
So, the last when Biden was in office, they were complaining about the length of bills because they I can't remember what bill it was, but it was like 600 pages that Biden was putting through. I think it was the budget, and they were complaining because it takes too long. No one could read that bill because it was too long. So last night I went in and said, so they had me read one bill, and it was 28 pages out of the state of Washington because a meme's going around about that, and I fact checked them on that. And I'm like, don't even ask me about the big tax bill. You know why? Because it's 1,100 pages, and I don't hear any of you bitching that it's too long. That's like The Stand. That's like trying to read The Stand in 2 hours. I'm a fast reader, but I'm not that fast. You're telling me nothing's hidden in that 1,100 page big, beautiful tax bill? And that shut him up real quickly. Are you talking, Lee? Because I can't hear you.
Shannon, are you there?
There you are. There was some. Ooh, I'm echoing horribly. Let me just drop down and come back in, Lee.
Yeah, why don't you drop and come back in? We might be having an Elon Musk moment.
Am I still echoing? Nope.
Yeah, I don't hear an echo. Okay, so you're back. So this is Elon took you down because you were talking about how you go into Trump discussions and troll around. Okay, so let's bring us back there. So you have been doing that like you always have, and recently people were complaining about the length of legislation. Was that what I
So
heard?
in Biden's term, they were complaining about the MAGAs were complaining about the length of bills. Only in the Biden administration. So when I pointed out to them that the new bill is one of the longest in history at 1,100 pages, they didn't realize that it was that long.
but this goes back to the point I was trying to make a little bit earlier before I think Musk attacked us. You're not. I don't think you're going to accomplish much bringing those facts into a MAGA room. This is why Republicans win. It doesn't matter what they said then and the consequences that could possibly have for today, because now today they've moved on to something else. So for Democrats, for liberal people, for anti-Trumpers, yeah, that gives them yet another reason to not like Republicans. But I don't think it's going to change anyone's mind about Trump, right?
No, I don't know. It won't. You know what? It won't hurt them until it affects them personally. On a personal level, they will not change their mind.
But even then, I don't know if that's enough. You have people with tariffs who have been suffering or really worried about the future because of the uncertainty. And Trump's, popularity has gone down. I think he had the lowest popularity in the first 100 days like ever recorded in the modern era of the United States. But if the election happened today, I'm not sure that he would lose to Kamala Harris.
No, I think they would have just stayed home. I don't know what enough would have stayed. I don't think they would have ever voted for Kamala at all, ever. But they might not have voted at all or voted for like Stein or something. But until like their mom is kicked out of the nursing home because Medicaid doesn't cover that anymore, or their mom has to go back to work at 63 because now they've changed the rules for Medicaid for you have to work till you're 64 now with the 80 hours a month, or they get kicked off food stamps, or their kids don't get free lunches or special education or something that affects them directly, each individual directly. They're not going to change their mind.
I don't even know if they're going to change their minds when something does affect them in that way. Um, I think the only way people will vote for Democrats is if they have some disruptors on the left. I think people really just want to blow stuff up now. Not only, well, it's two things. Let me know what you think about this. Not only has the right grown, every state trended Trump. Even the states he lost, it trended Trump. He won all the swing states. Like it was a total massive victory. And anyone who says anything else, I think, is lying. I think they're just lying if they don't admit that. I I don't think you explain that by just saying, "Oh, Republicans grew in popularity." I think it's more the Democrats shrunk in popularity. Once again, I don't say that Trump beat Hillary. I say Hillary lost. I don't say that Trump beat Kamala. I say Kamala lost. And she lost way worse than Hillary did. Hillary won the popular vote, for instance. So I don't think if you even have these things that directly affect voters negatively, and you could even get them to admit that that's because of what Republicans generally stand for, or that's because of something Trump literally is responsible for, I don't think that's going to change most people's minds. Now, will it change some? Sure. I don't think it's going to change enough. I think the Democrats have to improve. I don't think you can just have bad returns on Republican and or Trump policy for the Democrats to get back in the White House and for the Democrats to regain anything close to what they've lost. Do you disagree with that?
Well, I mean, looking at the special elections that have happened since Trump's took office, like we flipped the Pennsylvania district, the Pennsylvania, I don't know if it was a senator or congressman that we had to do a special election there, And that's been Republican for 136 years, and we flipped it Democrat for the first time.
I don't think
136.
that means anything. You're
Well, I mean,
always
there's been a
going to
couple that we've
have
actually.
these things that pop out. Even when the Democrats were blown away by Trump and the Republicans this last major election, they had, oh, look at this. What is that? I was watching Jon Stewart, the youngest ever representative from New Jersey, and she was like 36, like not that young. There's always things. I don't. You really think that that means Democrats are coming back by putting up the same lame candidates for presidency? Like, sure, you're going to have somebody who's interesting in Congress, but you really think that means that much?
I don't know, because don't we always do? I mean, don't Democrats mostly do crappy like before these? But like, don't we generally do crappy on special elections? Like,
I
isn't it
really think
usually
it depends on the area and the circumstances. I know generally when less people vote, Republicans do better.
right? That's what.
Because
Yeah,
when
I
less
guess that's a
people
better way to
vote, the
say
ones who do vote are old people, and those are always Republicans. So that's a trend. Um,
it. Give me one sec, Lee. I drank my coffee down the wrong pipe.
Lee, Elon Musk is trying to murder me. Give me a second. Okay, so let me jump over here to the New York Times, and we're going to read. Let me share my screen. This is all looking fine and dandy. Yes, looking good. The United States has formally accepted a 747 jetliner as a gift from the government of Qatar. I've heard people saying Qatar. I thought it was called Qatar, so maybe I'm an idiot, but that caught me off guard hearing a few people on the Talking Head shows being like Qatar this, Qatar that. The Air Force has been asked
I
to
guess
figure
that
out.
it's
Say it again, Shan.
QUTAR, right?
QATAR. Well, I mean, there's always weird pronunciation, and it's just like anything. If you go to France, they don't call us the United States or America. They call us whatever they call us in French or in Spanish or in Chinese. So it might be one of those things, but I don't know. It just, especially when like everybody's talking about this, I feel like the network should just pick something to move forward. The Air Force has been asked to figure out a way to rapidly upgrade it so it can be put into use as a new Air Force One plane for President Trump. The chief Pentagon spokesman said that the gift was in accordance with all federal rules and regulations. Hey, listen to that. The plane is estimated to be worth about $200 million. Oh, I saw $400 million. The New York Times says industry executives estimate it's worth about $200 million. Will require extensive work before it can be considered secure enough to carry Mr. Trump. The plan has drawn concerns from members of Congress who worry that the president will pressure the Air Force to do the work so fast that sufficient security measures will not be built into the plane, such as missile defense systems or even systems to protect the plane from an electromagnetic effect of a nuclear blast. That would be like a EMP. The Pentagon has not given an estimate of when the work on the plane might be done, even though the White House says the president wants it soon, perhaps even by the end of the year. The gift has also drawn questions from both Democrats and Republicans in Congress who worry that Qatar may be trying to improperly influence the president, or that the plane itself might have listening devices. Yeah, that seems like a bad idea, accepting a plane from a country. If it was like, I don't know, an estate in Qatar and somehow that was legal, or if it was like, I don't know, something they owned that was in the U.S., like some resort, and they're like, here you go, president, and that was somehow legal, that would make more sense. Once again, if we just push it aside and say it's somehow legal, than the plane that is supposed to protect the president with all those countermeasures we were just discussing, and also house not just the president, but like other members of the cabinet, members of the press. I mean, who knows the type of people who fly on Air Force One? I'm sure there's a record somewhere, and it would be very interesting to look at it for like the last 20 years. If all of that can be listened to, that's not a good time either. Shannon?
Yeah, I was trying to see how much we already paid for the 2 new Air Force Ones, but yeah, that are being currently built at Boeing. Looks like we paid $3.9 billion for 2 planes in 2018 to be built. It was supposed to be finished by 2026, but there's delays, so it'll be delivered next year.
Well, Shannon, the president wants a plane now. So I think we can agree that since he wants a plane now, this is clearly the best way forward. Clearly. I mean, this is it.
I want it now, like a spoiled child.
That
Screw
we
that
should get
safety stuff.
AI to do the Golden Goose, but it's a Qatari plane, Golden Plane. I don't know. We got to figure something out here. And it's just Trump dancing around. I want it now. Hey, Mr. President, your plane's gonna be ready by 2026. I want it now. Mr. President, this is going to cost a lot of money to upgrade, and there's still the question of if they're listening to. I want it now. Yeah.
But I mean, he didn't do bad. I will have to say the Boeing deal, he did pretty good because any delays or any additional costs have to be picked up by Boeing. So I mean, that's a pretty good deal because
What's the Boeing deal now? What happened? Oh, because the plane is delayed, Boeing has to pay for it.
Yeah, any delays or like extra costs because they always like to do extra costs for crap. They have to pay for it. So 3.9 is the max we'll pay for the 2 jets.
Yeah, and you just tweeted this over on twitter.com/NEWZ
That's from
debate,
2018.
so thank you
Yeah,
for
I had
that.
to go back and see what the original deal was.
Oh wow, so this is like first Trump figured
this is
this
the
out.
first
Okay,
Trump.
this is great. Wow, this was the Trump where we were all just like unimpressed with his ability to govern and how slow he was, and look at what's happening now. All right, so this is from 2018, CNN. President Trump and Boeing have struck a deal over the development of 2 new Air Force One planes at a price tag of $3.9 billion. The White House and Boeing say, and the president asked for the planes to be ready by 2021. So it's a 5-year delay because they're not going to be ready till 2026.
The first plane's not going to be ready till 2026. The second one's 2028.
Oh, okay. He wanted them to be done by 2021. So he was jumping, I think, ahead of the schedule because it would be the beginning of what he thought would be his second term. And that was 3 years earlier than the original plan of 2024. Okay, so even the original plan has been delayed 2 years.
Correct.
But long and short of it is he struck a deal for them to pay for, I guess, the delays. Yeah, continue, Shannon.
I don't know if you remember, they were like he wanted to change the colors of Air Force One, and then Biden changed it back to, what Air Force One is now. JFK's design for Air Force One colors. Trump wanted to change those colors
to like orange. Like what colors would you want to?
It was like red or so. I can't remember what he wanted.
Well,
he wanted
red,
like
of
red
course.
Yeah, it's something obnoxious.
Air Force One plane with red. Yeah. It would be really cool though if they just painted a red. If they just painted a red tie like down the back of the plane, and like the cockpit was just orange, just Trump with a tie. I gotta say, it would ruin it for the next president. They'd have to repaint it probably at millions of dollars. But I would like to see that plane.
I got it. Hold on. There you go. And then that's what he wanted. He wanted red, white, and blue. And
You mean
he
American
changed it to
colors?
that
He wanted
color. And then
American
Biden came
colors?
in. Huh?
He wanted American colors? That's like controversial.
Well, no, but he wanted that plane, the color that I put down below, the new Air Force One colors. And I don't know. I guess that was controversial. I don't know. But but I guess it also affected like how retroreflective panels worked with the colors, and there was some security concerns with having it
All
those
right, so we're
colors.
sharing this. Thank you for this, Shannon. The current Air Force One, was this during his first term that he wanted to do this?
With the new ones being built, this is the colors he wanted: the red, white, and blue.
But back when he made this deal with Boeing, so his first
Right.
term? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So the
Absolutely.
original
From the first
plane
term.
is very blue. There doesn't seem to be
And
any
that was
red. And
that was
it's very blue, a little bit of white. And the body is hardened to withstand, the EMP pulse of a nuclear blast. Now, he offered this new Air Force One design that at the time said would be ready by 2024, but now whatever the plane looks like, it will not be ready until 2026. It's a new color scheme. The top of it is really white, and then it looks like we have red, perhaps a strip of white, and then the underbelly is blue. I got to say, Shannon, looking at both of these planes, I think the Trump design looks better.
well, yeah, I agree. I don't know why the color was a big deal. I have no idea. I mean, but then Biden came in and he changed the color scheme back to JFK's color scheme, which is the current one. The current one was JFK's color scheme.
And JFK, his color scheme, as in it debuted while he was president, or he designed it. What does that mean?
It debuted when he was president. That's when.
Okay. You know what?
I
If
don't know.
that's a
Yeah, I don't
color
know if he picked the
scheme
colors, but
we've
they always
been,
say they're the JFK
i-
colors. So.
if those are the colors we've been using since JFK was banging Marilyn Monroe in the White House, I think we can move on to something else, right?
But there was design concerns, like how much more visible that plane is in the sky than the JFK one, and the retroreflective panels and stuff like that. So,
But you're telling me you can't have reflective panels with different colors? That's not possible.
oh no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that was one of the concerns that were brought up. That's like why military
But
planes
that
are all
doesn't
gray.
seem like a
It's
real
better with them.
concern. You're telling me there's a technology out there that is limited by the color of the paint over it?
Well, I mean that's how retroreflective panels work, because you're not really invisible. It's a
But this plane is not all sky blue. So clearly the plane we've been using since JFK was getting BJs from Marilyn Monroe in the White House, really want to emphasize that. Clearly they've made compromises already because it's not entirely sky blue. So I don't believe that for a second. Now, is this a dick move on Trump saying he wants Air Force One to look different for the many decades since it's always looked the same? Yes, it's a very normal dickish Trump move. But any criticism of this, I think, should be based on just, well, does it look nice? And I got to say, this other one looks much better. I cannot believe for any moments that there's not a technology that can be adapted to the paint scheme that I see here that looks much better than the Air Force One is not a pretty plane. It looks nicer the way that Trump has it designed, and it's a tasteful design.
looks like a United plane. Aren't those United colors, like United airplanes?
Well, in all fairness, red, white, and blue is like everything. It's Superman. Like, how many businesses have red, white, and blue? I mean, that's just, Americana.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying it looks like that's what it reminds me of, is like a United plane. Like I would get, but I mean, no, it is a nice color scheme. I mean, it really does fit America.
Let's just be honest.
I
Every once in a while, Trump hits it out of the park. This one hit it out of the
Yeah.
park. This is what Air Force One should look like. Now, could it be improved even more? I would say so. But this is a clear step up, a clear upgrade from the JFK colors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it was such a big deal, but it was back then when the color thing came out. It was on the news for like 2 weeks, because we have to complain about something either side.
Yeah, well, that's the news. Don't trust the news. Don't pay attention to the news, because this is the nonsense that you'll see when there's nothing else going on. That, well, I guess you don't have a lot of stories like this now because there's so many horrible things going on. But I just want to point out here, unless I'm missing something, it's a dick move by Biden to come in. And this is a design that's already been approved. They're not repainting any planes. These are new planes. So in theory, this is the first paint job they will receive. And they've spent money to probably make this change. And Biden comes in and he spends whatever money it took to undo the change. What's the point? Clearly, he did that just as an FU to Trump, right? Do we agree on that?
I would assume so. I mean, I don't know if any of it was, because how much of it was built really, if it's still not, or the outside of it was built. I'm sure they're doing. I don't know how planes. I don't know.
I mean, we don't know. But let's just say theoretically, if a plane is being constructed and there's a design change for the outside color several years before the plane's supposed to be ready, I feel like that can be accomplished the first time around. It's not a big deal. If you have a plane that's been flying, that's a bigger retrofit to repaint it. Just like if you have the car that's in the factory and you say, I want a blue car, versus you have a red car on the lot and you say, I want it to be blue, that's more work. It just, I don't know. Like, what was the benefit of Biden to come in and say, let's go back to those JFK, BJ, and the White House colors? I just don't. That seems petty to me, especially when this plane looks perfectly fine. The American flag is larger on the tail, like the tail fin, the part that shoots up. I mean, I think the flag should be even bigger than that. Couldn't the plane just be the American flag?
Oh, it could be. Yeah, you could just. Yeah, you're right. They could. Well, one side you could be right, because like the tails could have the stars and the stripes could go the other way.
The tails could have the stars. That's a great idea. Yeah, that's kind of a reverse American flag, but I think that would look really nice.
Well, on one side, it depends what side you're looking at, right?
Okay, you got a paint job that's different from side to side. Tell me more. Yeah. Oh, wait, sorry, Biden just got in the White House. No fun allowed. I don't know. That just seems dumb. If you go in and you undo some executive orders that Biden had just thrown down sometime in the last 4 years, okay, those can have real consequences. But I mean, this is not a substantial change. And there was no Qatar, plane at play when Biden reversed this, I guess. So that just, I don't know. That just seems like a waste of time. In my mind, it makes the Democrats not look good. Now, is this a big deal? Absolutely not. But it's just, as a Democrat, it's just one of those things, just builds up every day. I learn something new that I hate about the Democrats. And I never learn anything new that I like about the Democrats. The things I like about the Democrats, I already know. They're the party of universities and smart people who tell you things that affect you in your life, and the party of, we support the LGBTQ community. I mean, like, all the things I like about the Democrats, I already know. Every day I wake up, I learn something new about them I don't like. And that's why I don't see any success for Democrats anytime soon, because it can't just be Trump has a low rate of acceptance across the United States, low popularity. It can't just be that some Republicans are getting upset with him with this, that, or the other, because even Republicans can't take Trump all the time. It's got to be Democrats put some disruptors into the vanguard. They've got to put some people up there. I don't think AOC could win the presidency, but I would be so goddamn excited, Shannon. What do you think about this? The next time we have our presidential election, whoever is representing the Republican Party, maybe it'll be Trump for a third term. Who knows? I would like to see someone like
Well, if that's the case,
AOC.
I want Obama to run against him. Oh,
You know what? I gotta say, I have no problem with third, fourth, or fifth terms. If this is a democracy and it's supposed to be the people decide, how weird if you really step away from the fact that we're all used to it. How weird is it to say you can only be president twice, especially when we don't say that about being a senator? We don't say that about being a representative. We don't say that about being a congressman. I don't even think they have terms like the limits like for mayors anywhere that you can only have 2 terms. Like, I don't know. I
some
know the
states do.
president is
Some
is
states
more.
do, but
Say it again.
some states do, but some don't. Some
So
states
you're
have
telling
where
me
you can only
there
be
are major cities that say you can't be a mayor more than 2 terms?
governor. Oh, I'm sorry, governor. I know there's some states where you can only be governor a couple terms, 2 or 3 terms, but that's written into their
Really?
own state constitution.
I've
Yeah,
never heard of that. Let me look that up because that would be news to me.
but like
But
even
whatever the
the
case, it's not across the country, and
no,
and those are exceptions. But the biggest, most important office that we have ever come up with here in the United States, only two terms. I think Obama should have been allowed to go for the triple threat. Let's have him in. He's not my favorite president. I think he was kind of lame, but like that would have prevented Trump from coming in. I absolutely think Obama would have won a third term against Trump. Clinton, I don't know, maybe not with the BJ stuff, but aside from that, I think he could have got 3 terms.
yeah,
And then
there are 37 states have some form of term limits on the office of governor. 13 states,
but it's not 2. It's not 2 terms.
Ones that have 2 terms are Arkansas, California, Delaware, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Nevada, North Dakota, and Oklahoma.
So less than 10. 5.
All right.
Was that 5? 5 out of 50?
No, it's Arkansas, California, Delaware, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Nevada, North Dakota, Oklahoma, and wherever the North Mariana Islands are.
That doesn't count. Okay, so 9. Clearly, Lee
it's
cannot
9,
count.
9,
So
yeah.
I said 5. Was that 5? Okay, 9. So 9 out of 50 have a 2-term limit for governor. Okay, that's more than I knew. Thank you for that. I
But
bet
like
that
my
hasn't
state,
been
we don't
that
have-
way since the 40s. They passed this after Roosevelt, right? Because they didn't want to have another person in the White House that long. Whatever the case, it just seems weird to me that we do that. Not even close to a majority of states do that for governor. And if we looked at the dates, my guess is they didn't pass those at the exact same time that they passed it for the president. So the president isn't even like, oh, this is a good idea. They literally did it because of a president who was very successful, and a president who actually, if you think about it, was very successful for America. Roosevelt generally is looked at in good graces, right?
Correct.
This was not.
You're right. Why don't we have it in other forms? Because we have the 3 branches of government, and only the president is designated to 2 terms. Our Supreme Court's our lifetime.
Supreme Court, it's life. I mean, you could step down so you don't die in office, which is what Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have done, but she was selfish and did not. Yeah, it's life. Like literally, the president. I don't know. I want to see if people would vote for Trump for a third term. I want to see him on the ballot. I want to see Barack come back. I think there's probably not any presidents who could come back who served 2 terms. Clinton couldn't run again. Yeah, let's say Barack. Okay, this is the opposite. He's not an exciting candidate. He's not a change maker. He's a middle of the road, disappointing Democrat like everyone else that I've had to vote for. But boy, is he smart. And boy, does he look good in a suit. And boy, does he look good talking to our allies around the world. I would love to see an Obama v. Trump election. Let's bring it on.
I do.
I
I
think that
want to
would be
see them
great.
debate each other.
I don't want to see them debate. In fact, I don't think we should do presidential debates anymore. I don't see the value in them.
I just think it would be amusing. I want to see it.
No, you're right. I agree with you. It would be amusing. That this is absolutely true. But if we're just actually just talking about value, I no longer see a value. And in fact, what was the value ever? Like what value did they ever have? So if you look better than your opponent on the national televised debate, what does that mean? Does that mean you'll be a better president? Absolutely not. Does it mean your policies are better? Absolutely not. It means you're better at debating on stage while millions of people around the country watch you. That's all that means. Right?
Correct.
Am I missing
Yes,
something?
absolutely. Well, I don't know. Maybe, because I was interested in politics in my younger years, but I don't ever remember really wanting to tune in to a debate. I mean, not until like probably McCain Biden or McCain Obama. But yeah, I mean, just to get what they think they should do for the country. But I don't even think it's down to that anymore. It's more who can tell off someone else in a debate.
Yeah, and if your side wins, that's great. If your side loses, that's not great. But does it mean anything? I believe there have been debates that have changed elections. If I remember specifically, the one that was JFK. Now he was not actually banging Marilyn Monroe on the stage. That was probably either before and or after the debate. But it was JFK versus Nixon, if I remember correctly. And people who watched TV thought Nixon won, and people who listened to the radio thought, I'm sorry, people who watched TV thought JFK won because he's JFK. And people who listened to the radio thought Nixon won. If I remember correctly, the TV audience was larger or something. Because I'm trying to think, like, what are the debates that actually shaped the election? But I can't remember in my lifetime going back. Was there one that ruined somebody? I think
Well,
I remember.
they said, like, I remember, like, they said if Roosevelt was on TV, he never would have won because of his disability.
Well, yeah, he was a sickly guy in a wheelchair.
Right. But he sounded great.
But he's generally regarded as a great president, not only one who got us through most of World War II, but the Depression, because he was in office a long time, the New Deal, all that stuff, putting people to work. I mean, he's generally well regarded, right? And so automatically afterwards, we make it so that no one else can repeat the greatness that he was able to accomplish.
Exactly. We're way too much into looks too. That's the other thing. Because I mean, just that statement where everyone says, Roosevelt wouldn't have won because of his disability. But he was a great president. So the debates really don't mean anything now. I mean, if you put up someone in a wheelchair and
So, well, this is interesting because Greg Abbott, we've talked about him down in Texas. If he ever runs for president, and I think that he could, he still has, I think, a fighting chance if he decides to. It'll be the first time in my lifetime that they won't just have two people standing at a podium. I assume all the debates will be both candidates sitting at a desk.
Yeah, it'd probably be more like Trump and Hillary, where they had the seats on the stage and they got up to talk.
Oh, I don't think they'll do that because then it will be him in a wheelchair and
No,
someone
I
else
just
sitting
meant
on
where
a
they were.
stool.
Yeah, no, I just meant they would be sitting like that instead of with all of them in a row standing.
Yeah, yeah, but I really think they'll have the table because I think that the TV people will correctly realize, um, if you have him out there in the wheelchair, it's going to be it's going to be people are going to be focusing on that. But if you hide that under the table and you just see like the back of it, right? They're not just going to put him in a chair out there. I assume he'll have to be in the wheelchair. Um,
Right.
I think that's the most tact that you could have in that situation.
But do you think anyone could
But
really?
go on.
Sorry, do you think anybody could really take over MAGA like Trump? Like keep the
No,
momentum going like Trump
I
has?
think this is going to be what is it like when a fire burns itself out like a flash flood that comes in but afterwards the water has receded because it didn't stay long enough. Like what is it if you have a light downpour for like 2 days, the land will be able to soak it up, and if you have a flash flood it just carries everything down towards the river or towards the ocean, whatever. I'm falling over my words, but I really think MAGA is going to burn out. I don't think it can sustain itself. I don't think that means the Democrats all of a sudden start winning again because they have to be good on their own, which they won't do because my party's terrible. But um, it's
Our
not going to
party.
be just Junior comes in or Marco Rubio comes in and they just take over. Something's going to change. No one can correctly predict what that's going to be, but you just can't anoint the next person, especially if Donald Trump's alive for the next 10 or 15 years. He's going to interfere with everything. He's not going to be quiet.
Yeah, I just bet if something happened to him, do you think they could ever keep up? I just don't see anyone else having. I don't see him as charismatic, but people do as Trump.
If
I just
if he died in office, or if he completed his term and was diagnosed with some terrible illness, and like from his deathbed there's like video of him being like, I want you guys all to vote for Marco Rubio or whoever it was,
right.
maybe that could be enough. But if he's alive and he's tweeting and all this other stuff, no, it's going to be chaos afterwards because he knows he can't run anymore. He's going to want to, so he's going to say how much better he would be in the office.
Right.
um, yeah, there's no clear succession plan here. It's going to be messy, but it's the good messy that you want for the Republicans because it doesn't necessarily mean the Democrats take over. It just means you have to get your shit in gear. I still think the next president's going to be a Republican unless the succession is a clear shit show from square one. If they can just manage it halfway, I think the next president is Republican. The only way we get a Democrat in there is if they put in some disruptors and the Republicans shit the bed. I think both of those have to happen. I don't see one of them being enough. Well, unless they ran, like Bernie Sanders. I don't think Bernie can do it anymore. He's just too old. I think he could. I just think optically, looking at him, the old man on the stage, it doesn't work out. But if you could get a young Bernie, I don't know if that's AOC, but someone maybe like AOC, and they went full fuck the Democrats, that could be enough. But of course, that's not going to happen. Shannon, let's go back to this thing you tweeted. I appreciate this. Which states have term limits on governor? I didn't even know this. Look at Virginia. You can only serve one term in Virginia.
Yep.
And then Montana has 2 consecutive and then a 2-term pause. Let's read about that. It says you can have 2 consecutive 4-year terms, but then you can't run for 2 terms, but I guess it means you can come back. So that is not a 2-term lifetime. Arkansas,
Right.
California, Delaware, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Nevada, North Dakota, Oklahoma, like you said earlier, that's a lifetime 2 4-year terms. But Indiana, Wyoming, and Oregon have 2 consecutive 4-year terms, and then you have to pause for 1 term. And Montana has 2 consecutive 4-year terms, and you have to pause for 2 terms. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's all dependent on your state constitution, on how they have it written for governor.
But then I'm confused about, so it says Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, long list, 2 consecutive 4-year terms. But then Arkansas, California, Delaware, blah, 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 Oklahoma says 2 4-year terms a lifetime. What's the difference between those two? I'm not sure. This is termlimits.com. I'm not sure what that means based on, because it doesn't say lifetime for this large group at the top, but it does say that for like Arkansas, Oklahoma group. So I don't know, not necessarily important, but it's interesting. So there are a lot more term limits when it comes to governor than I thought. The only states that have no term limits, it's a little easier to talk about them. So we have Texas, Utah, Idaho, Washington State, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Your own state, Shannon, has no limits.
No. No, but our state's weird because our states we'll have a Republican governor, but everything else will be Democrat, like voted on for Democrat. It's very weird.
That's a little bit like, was that Romney? Because he was the Massachusetts governor, right? And that's a pretty liberal state, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. But the rest of his, the rest of the cabinet was dead. For some reason, we'll vote for a Republican governor, but everything else will be Democrat. Very weird.
Sometimes, man, I mean, it takes a Republican sometimes. I do see the value of having a lot of Democrats across the state and then having a Republican governor to kind of make sure they get stuff done and maybe cut out some of the fat. I think that's a better situation than the opposite. Could you imagine having Republicans all over the state and then a Democratic governor? That governor is mostly just going to be trying to prevent the state from catching on fire. I think the Republican governor can work with Democrats, I think, much more than a Democratic governor could try to work with Republicans everywhere. And that's not a diss on the Democrats. I diss the Democrats all the time. That's a diss on the Republicans.
Right. Yeah, no, I just find it a lot, weird in like my state that we sometimes get a Republican governor with everything else Democrat. But is it Kentucky that has the Democrat governor, but that's Mitch McConnell area?
If Kentucky has a Democratic governor, I assume there's not much more blue in that state.
Yeah, Andy Beshear. He's a Democrat, right?
Sure. If it makes you happy, he's a Democrat. But okay, so Shannon,
let me say that.
I'm surprised you led with the guitar playing. I know that that's a big gift, and even Republicans are questioning the logic of accepting said gift. But with all the things that have happened in like the last 6 weeks or however long it's been since I did a show, I got to say I was a little surprised that that's what you led with. Do you want to hear what I had lined up if I was going to go with my first story? This is from CBS News, which always bothers me because oftentimes my ad block doesn't work. This is from a few days ago. It's been updated, but the story broke maybe like a week ago or longer. The Catholic Church and federal government have both reacted vehemently to new legislation in Washington state that requires priests to report child abuse or neglect to law enforcement after learning about the crime through confessions. So going in that little box and talking to the priest, if you say, I have abused a child or neglected a child, the priest now in Washington state has to report that.
Okay. There are certain conditions that a priest does have to report you to, even though the seal of confession. If you have done it in the past and confess, they can't turn you in for that. But if you tell them you're thinking about doing a crime, they have to.
Oh, sorry, that was not the sound effect that I wanted to play. I accidentally pressed that button.
It's sort of like a psychiatrist. Like, if you tell your psychiatrist you did something in the past, they can't turn you in for that because of Dave.
Hey, shrink! I just murdered someone, and I think I might do it again. Yeah, tonight on NBC.
If you're a danger to someone else, then they have to.
So yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of professionals, which can be a wide umbrella. If you tell someone that you're going to or actively hurting someone, you're supposed to report that. So I wouldn't be surprised if priests were told that that was the case for a long time now. So I guess this is past child abuse or neglect. It is mandatory for all clergy to report child abuse without exceptions for information disclosed during confessions, because confessions were previously considered privileged, which I think would be like the conversation between a man and his wife. I think you can claim privilege for that. Certainly a attorney-client privilege is a thing. You're not supposed to have your attorney turn you into the government if you tell them where the bodies are buried, that sort of a thing. I'm trying to get to the details here. The Archdiocese of Seattle.
It was the last time we talked about that was the. Sorry.
Continue.
I did another story while you were gone. That with the attorney client, we talked about that with the Menendez brothers, and they're being resentenced too.
Yeah, the Menendez brothers, they've been resentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole, so we may see them out. Yeah, that's another good update that we haven't talked about since the show's been on break. But the Seattle Archdiocese has warned that breaking the confidence of confession is grounds for a priest to be kicked out of the church. So they're saying if priests follow the law, they could be kicked out. The U.S. Department of Justice, however, says it opened a civil rights investigation into Washington's law, focusing on how it was developed and eventually passed. It suggests the legislation could be at odds with the First Amendment.
But
saying that the legislation... Say it again?
How would the priest know who's confessing to them? Because when you confess, you go into a confessional booth, and there's a screen between you and the priest. He can't see you.
Yeah. Well, my guess is there's probably people who confess to them regularly, and they would know who they are. If you do confession, I assume it's something you've done before. I don't think people drive 50 miles to a different church and confess there so the person doesn't know who they are. But also, I'm sure most churches have security cameras. If someone came in and said that I murdered a child and buried it 50 miles from the city hall, and the priest said, oh, someone came in and told me this, I bet there'd be a way to figure out who that person was. At the very least, it would be a lead the police could investigate.
True. Yeah, I didn't think about cameras because they didn't have them when I was a Catholic. But
trying to see if there's any more details here. Washington lawmakers are not the first to try to mandate clergy members to report child abuse, especially as the Catholic Church has increasingly faced public reckonings over sex crimes since the turn of the century. Although a majority of U.S. states already have abuse reporting mandates in place for religious leaders. Yes, so this is what we're talking about earlier. Each of those laws includes a provision exempting information learned through confession. Okay, so we were wrong. So previously, if you learned that child abuse had taken place or was taking place through someone came to you and reported it, or you walked in, uh-oh, close the door. You walked in and you saw the abuse going on, then you are mandated in these states. A majority of U.S. states already have those mandates. But if you learned about this through confession, which I think mostly in the U.S. would be Catholic, I don't think you regularly do confession in the other Christian sects that I'm aware of. You were
Right.
always exempted. So I guess that's quite a big difference.
Yeah, I know there was a big, because a lot of the priests that were abusing children were confessing to other priests, and then they'd just be moved to a different diocese, and they wouldn't turn in their fellow priests.
Oh man, just think if the Catholic Church has been using that excuse for like the past 100 years. It's like, well, okay, we were aware that Father John over there really, really, really abusing kids in the diocese, but he confessed his crimes in the confessional booth. Like, or if you just make it so the entire church can be considered the confessional booth, so anything that's said in the church is considered
No, I mean,
confessional.
that's
That's a real lawyer tactic.
yeah, that's the big scandal of it, is that they kept the priests that were abusing children and they just move them to different dioceses. Or,
Yeah, of course.
all over
We've
the
talked
world,
about that
so-
before, and it's not hearsay. It's definitely happened. It still happens to this day, and it's horrible. And the Catholic Church is terrible for letting this to continue. But those were all things the Catholic Church just did. It wasn't based on confession. So this is like an added layer of complexity. Yeah, I've never seen the Catholic Church come out and say, well, we knew that this guy was diddling the kids, but he told us during confession. I've never seen that excuse. So this adds a wrinkle in the whole system. What do you think, Shannon? Do you think that if people go in and confess, they should be allowed to confess and use that confession for what it's intended to? Like you're supposed to, I think, feel better. And then feel better about abusing kids. Jesus, feel better, and then you're supposed to like have some sort of penance, like, hey, do some Hail Marys, and now that you've confessed your sins, you can be cleansed of them in some way. Like, okay, whether or not that's for me or you, that's for us to decide. But if that's the purpose of confession, shouldn't that be allowed? What do you think?
I don't think it should be limited to confessions. So, like Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, if a child reports abuse, they have to have a witness before and report to the elders with the witness before they will report to the police. So I don't think it should be confined to just Catholics and confession.
Yeah, but it's got to start somewhere. And there's a lot more Catholics than Jehovah's Witnesses.
No, I was just using that. Or the Mormons, they do the same thing. Just there's.
According to state law, that wouldn't be legal. If you live in a state where the majority of states say that a religious official has to report child abuse, it doesn't matter whether or not you have a witness. So that's already illegal.
No, but wouldn't that be a form of? I don't know if they would consider that a form of confession, right? I don't know.
Well, according to this news article, a majority of states already require religious officials to report child abuse. So I think confession is specifically a Catholic thing. I don't think that that falls under that. Now, clearly, are people not reporting child abuse? Yes, but
Right.
at least according to this, we know that that would be illegal as long as it was not related to confession. And now in Washington State, it is related to confession.
Yeah, I don't think it should be a cover for child abuse or murder or
Doesn't that kind of in just to take a devil's advocacy kind of role here? Doesn't that just mean that people are going to stop using confession to talk
that's
about
what I
those
would
sort of
think.
things?
That's what I would think. Yeah, absolutely. I do, or it's the priests just aren't going to do it anyways, because the only people that know what's being said in that confessional booth are you and the priest.
I just got a kind of like a eureka moment. If you could sneak a microphone into a confession booth, like a wireless mic, and leave it there, I'm sure someone's thought about that, right? That can't be an
Oh, it'd be
original
pretty
thought I
easy.
just had.
Yeah, it'd be pretty easy because when you go into the confessional booth, there's like two confessional booths. The priest is in the middle, and then on either side are two confessional booths. So you go in, and all there is there's a like you kneel down, and that
Yeah, you
pushes
do.
a button that lights a light up in the priest, so he knows which side you're on, who's in the booth next to you.
Yeah,
So a light
but my
comes on
point
in the
is that someone's had to have got a mic in there, right? Like that's got to be something someone's thought of already.
Oh God, yeah, it'd probably be real. Or actually, if I was me, I'd hide it in the priest's booth because that way you could hear both sides of the confession.
Well, I mean, any mic that you put in one side of the box would, if you boosted it enough, and especially if you do effects and get rid of some noise and some hiss, you could hear the conversation. One side would be clearer. That would be the one that the box you were in.
Right, they're not
But
soundproof.
wow, that I don't know that I'm ever gonna bring that plan to fruition, but that's an interesting idea. So a psychologist who has worked with the church for decades and written extensively about child sexual abuse among clerics says that removing exemptions for confession could have unintentionally adverse effects. He told CBS News that the absolute confidentiality, can't talk, that's understood to apply in church confessions has, in his experience, encouraged people who have committed crimes to come clean to a priest who has then referred them to a psychologist, such as this guy. So he's gotten referrals, he says, because people have felt so comfortable coming clean to a priest that then the priest would say, well, go talk to this dude about your problems. I feel like once you tell a psychologist that you've committed crimes, I feel like they have to report you those. So I don't know if that thought process really works out in the end. But this guy says multiple patients referred to him this way over his career. Yes. And then he reported the situation to authorities because he's a medical professional. But he says without the assurance that things that are said in confession cannot be used against a priest, so cannot be held against them if they don't report it. The psychologist says he suspects priests in Washington state will stop offering confession and instead direct people to seek that service at churches in nearby states. Wow, so maybe just Washington state gets rid of confession. Technically, priests, through their religious oaths, are bound to a seal of confidentiality after hearing confession, and the church forbids them from sharing the information learned with others. Catholic doctrine explicitly prohibits them from notifying authorities even after someone has confessed to a crime. Hmm. I don't know, Shannon. What do you think about this? I for better or worse, like so many things in the United States, I feel like maybe this goes against the freedom of religion.
Yeah, that's where I'm having the. I mean, I just thought because it's the seal of the sacrament, the oath they take, what ordained priests take, the oath for the seal of the sacrament, where they're not allowed to divulge anyone's what they're told in confession. And I mean, priests have been martyred for it, in the distant past. But yeah, I that steps into like religion and government, and whether I agree with the Catholic Church or not. I mean, I would like to see them report it, but I don't know. That isn't
I think I
intruding
think
on their
what we
religion.
got to do is at a federal level, and I don't think this would ever happen. The Catholic Church just has too much power in the United States, but at the federal level, we basically have to say that confessions can no longer take place if they involve crimes because crimes have to be reported, or we keep our hands off it. I don't
Right.
think you can say just child affecting crimes, even though those are some of the worst crimes. Um, you have to say any crime has to be
I
reported.
know, but then you're taking away the beliefs because you to get into heaven, you have to confess your sins and repent
Yes.
for Catholics.
So this is my grandiose scheme here. Let me explain it. So I think we either have to say that any crime that is confessed to a priest in confession has to be reported, which will basically get rid of confessions in the United States. It just won't be a thing anymore.
Maybe if they're
I
mortal
guess I guess
sins,
some
like
people
you
would still confess like normal things. They'd be like, "Oh, I've had lustful thoughts about my neighbor. That's not a crime." So I guess you could still do that. But I think it would basically remove confession from. I think the church would downplay it. They would say, "Don't do confessions here," and they would come up with some sort of loophole. I think we basically have to get rid of confession, or we can't touch it at all. It doesn't make sense for me, even though the Catholic Church specifically, but just like many other churches in the United States, have continuing abuse against children that they're trying to cover up. It just doesn't make any sense to me that they would say child abuse, but if you come in and say you've been burning down buildings like that's not something that has to be reported. So I would like to see this either expand. I guess this is the way to explain it. This has to be expanded to include all crimes, or it has to include no crimes. I don't like this middle ground.
I mean, the way the Catholic Church could handle it was just say all confessions have to be done in a private chat room, like with anonymous servers and priests in other countries. Because they would have no
Yeah,
idea
if
who
the if
they're
the if the
coming in
priest is in Canada and they're at a
Right.
computer and you're in the confessional booth in Washington State or Maryland or anywhere, but it's just a microphone that connects you to a priest on some island in the Caribbean, then I guess
Right, or in the
that's
middle
the
of
way you
Rome.
can do confession.
Right.
Yeah, Rome's the Vatican's a country. They set their own laws. If they just had
Right.
all confessions go to the Vatican, there you are.
Yep.
Could
I
you
mean, that's the way
imagine
that it could be
getting
done.
that job? Father John, you've done such a good job with the Archdiocese of Pittsburgh. We're gonna elevate you to the Vatican. Well, thank you. That's really nice to be recognized. What kind of job do you have for me in the Vatican? What is this headset you're handing me? Well, Father John, you're going to be the new Zoom confession priest in the
Then you
Vatican in
gotta
some
separate
like
it by
giant
language
tower.
too.
The language? Oh yeah, that'll be really
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah, you'll have to use Chat GPT for that. Dang. Okay. Well, this has
I
been
mean,
fun,
yeah.
Shannon. I'm sorry, continue.
I mean, yes, priests usually speak more than one language, but trying to connect everyone's confession in the world to one space and
Well, if
having all
you're
the
a
different
priest, you
languages is
probably
very
speak
difficult.
your language plus a little bit of Latin, right? I don't think they do a lot of Latin church services anymore, but I assume you probably learn that when you're coming up through the priesthood, like AAA baseball, when you're before you become the full priest, you learn a little bit of Latin. Um, but yeah, no, you couldn't do confession for people in different countries. I mean, just look at Europe. How many different languages are there? That's just one section of the world. There's no way that would work. Um, but I would support it. I think that probably in the U.S. It is not constitutional because it denies people a major component of a major religion in the United States. I know that you're not supposed to think how big a religion is when you think about its constitutionality, but that's just being frank and honest. Like if this was some weird sect that no one was a member of, it would be different. I think that that's a realistic way to look at it. So probably it's not constitutional. But if we're going to say it's constitutional, I think we should just outlaw confession. I think confession should be something that is so restricted that the priests have to report basically any crime they hear about, aside from like, oh, Father, forgive me, I drove 55 and a 25 last week. Aside from those things, um, and that would be difficult parsing out exactly what they're going to tell you versus what they don't have to tell you. Um, we basically
I
could
think
just get rid of it.
I'm thinking back to like my confession when I was getting my first communion, because that's when you first confess in the Catholic Church, is when you just before you go for your first communion. That's part of it. You have to go and confess your sins for the first time, and you're like 7 years old, and or six or seven, maybe eight, somewhere around there. And I was like, I took $1 out of my grandmother's purse, so that's theft. So are they going to turn to the child too?
Well, and so that's the danger here. I think that that's a realistic slippery slope. The slippery slope is usually not a good argument to bring in, but every once in a while it's perfect and it slides straight into this discussion. So if we say child abuse, I think we have to also say elder abuse. Like, I don't think you can just say children, even though that's a huge crime with the Catholic Church. It doesn't make any sense just to mention that. So you got to throw in like all your major crimes, and then you got to decide, well, what if someone tells me that they're cheating on their taxes? So you'd have to really parse it out, which is why I think you either don't touch it at all. This is my final 2 cents here. You don't touch it at all, and priests don't have to tell you a single thing that they hear during confession, or you basically outlaw confession because you scare priests so much, all the things that they have to tell you that they hear, that they probably are going to be hesitant to even take someone's confession. People will have no reason to want to give their confession, and I'm sure the church is, capable enough to figure out some loophole around this. But America being what it is, and with the administration that we have now, I assume eventually this law is either going to go away, something will make it go away and it won't be a law, or it'll be a very slow revolution. So the majority of US states now say that it is illegal for a church leader to not report crimes that they know of, but that has nothing to do with confession. So I don't think we're going to get to a majority of states in my lifetime that would say you have to report things during confession. I just don't
So
see that in the cards.
you say this administration. I think it would have been worse under the last administration because Biden is Catholic, and the stuff that Biden has to confess to his person being a president, even though he has presidential immunity, would still be disclosed.
Do we know that Biden went to confession as a president? I'm not sure if he did. I mean, he's pro-choice, so he was always being threatened with excommunication, and people were saying he was not Catholic, Catholic in name only. Did he go to confession? Let me ask ChatGPT. That's a really good final thing to ask. If I can get it
I
to work.
don't I mean, he did go to church every week. Whether he went to confession is another thing.
Yeah, I'm sure he went to church, but that, of course, is not the same thing as confession. Okay, so this will be the final thing, and then we'll get your last bit of thought on this, and then I think I'll shut down the show. I want to go back listen to it. I'm probably going to do a different setup the next time I do it because it took so long to get this setup working. That's why I started the show like 45 minutes late. I think I can probably do it a different way that will accomplish the same thing and more, but in a more efficient method. But I got to kind of go back to the basics and kind of rebuild it from there. So maybe that'll be my project over the next several days. There is no public record confirming that President Joe Biden received the sacrament of confession during his presidency. As a lifelong Catholic, Biden has openly discussed his faith and regularly attends Mass. He has pro-choice stance on abortion, which conflicts with church teachings. He got a lot of crap for that. Some U.S. bishops have debated whether Catholic politicians who support abortion rights should be denied communion. I remember that discussion. But despite this, Biden has continued to receive communion, including during a mass in Rome. So, yeah, there's nothing about whether or not he has confessed. Maybe we'd find something on like a Google search, but that's what ChatGPT says. All right, Shannon, it was great to have you. Why don't you give me your final thoughts? And then I'm going to go back and do a post mortem on today's show and see how I can improve. We weren't on stereo today, so we won't have Bjorn joining us if I'm not live on stereo, as he does not do Twitter spaces. So I want to make sure I can fix that. And also maybe get my old sound effects back. But yeah, great to have you join me. Give me your final little tidbit.
Are you doing another one tomorrow? Thing?
I don't have one scheduled. I'd like to do one maybe on Saturday. I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
sure if I can
I
do
thought
one
I had an
tomorrow.
announcement that. All right, there was an announcement that you were doing a show tomorrow because it's in my alarm for tomorrow as well. That's why I don't know how it got sent out that way. 'Cause I
Really?
came on at noon.
Oh,
You
no,
weren't
I
on
thought,
yet, and I thought you postponed it till
yeah.
tomorrow.
No, that's what I would usually do. That's a strong news debates move. But no, nothing scheduled for tomorrow. I could do a show tomorrow, perhaps, but I'm thinking more Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's good. I just wanted to know when to set the. I didn't know if that, but then you came on a little bit late, so I was confused. I thought you might have just. Okay,
Yeah.
no show tomorrow.
If I hadn't gotten the show started when I did, I probably would have canceled and gone with a different day. But I was luckily able to bandage everything together to get going. So I appreciate you joining me. It's great to have you after like 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah, it's nice. I know it's nice to hear from you. I'm glad you're alive and doing well and having a good vacation.
But give me your final thoughts on anything we've discussed today.
Uh, Trump's guitar playing is stupid because we've already spent 3.9 billion on 2 new ones. That's my final thought.
Hard to not agree with that. All right, Shannon, great to have you. Hope you can join me for the future shows. I'm still not in the home base, so it's going to be fun figuring this stuff out. But I just got a bunch of new equipment. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do shows on the road, but no, I figured it out, at least in theory, and I think I can do even more. So look for some kind of announcement on Discord and Twitter. I think Saturday, but I will make that announcement and you will see it if that's the case. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope the weather in terrible weather in Connecticut doesn't bring you down too much. Just stay inside and watch Netflix.
That's my plan.